structures of the urinary system can be seen on any of these 4 models. So I'm going to walk you through the relevant structures and essentially follow the pathway of urine as it is formed to when it is released from the body. Okay, so we'll start with this urinary system model here. What this represents is essentially the inferior vena cava and the abdominal aorta, and ultimately leading down to the iliac arteries and veins. And so the rest of the body has been removed here. We are looking at the anterior side of the body. So this is the pubic symphysis, and just posterior to the pubic symphysis is the urinary bladder. So we'll get into that in just a second. All right, so first of all, blood is delivered, oxygenated blood is delivered to the kidneys via this red vessel right here and red vessel right here. These are the right and left renal arteries. All right, after filtration, deoxygenated blood is drained from both kidneys via the left and right renal veins. All right, this is the kidney. All right, so ultimately, urine is going to be filtered, or blood is going to be filtered, and urine is produced up here. And as we'll get into on the next model, urine is then drained out the ureter or ureter all the way down to the urinary bladder. Now let's take a look inside the urinary bladder. Okay. Note that the full correct term is urinary bladder, not just bladder. We also have a gallbladder, so be sure to be specific about that. This is the urinary bladder. When we take a look inside the urinary bladder, we see that there is a triangular structure formed from essentially where the 2 ureters dump into the urinary bladder and when the urethra, so this little pink tube right here is the urethra, these draining urine from the kidneys to the urinary bladder are the ureters. All right, so this white triangle here is called the trigon, and essentially this is clinically significant because this is where a lot of urinary tract infections reside. Okay, so let's look a little bit more detail at this model right here. All right, what we can see is essentially, zoomed in to the kidney. The outer portion of the kidney is called the renal cortex. All right, so just between my 2 fingers right here, this section is the renal cortex, which means kind of the surface of the kidney. Next, we have the renal medulla, so the middle of the kidney. And so that is this section right here. And so the renal medulla is made up of independent, in this image, looking triangular shaped structures. These are called the renal pyramids. Okay, so this is a pyramid, this is a pyramid, this is a pyramid. We can actually see that it is more pyramid in shape as opposed to just a triangle. It is 3-dimensional. Okay? And collectively, multiple pyramids come together to form this inner region of the kidney, which is called the renal medulla. What's going to happen here is that filtration of the blood is going to occur at this corticomedullary boundary, so the boundary between the renal cortex and the renal medulla. And so let's zoom in to this next structure right here. Okay. Again, here is the renal cortex. Here is the renal medulla. This structure, triangular in shape, is called the renal pyramid. Now what we see is these white squiggly things that are crossing over this corticomedullary boundary. This entire white structure is collectively called the nephron. Okay. We zoom in a little bit farther, we can see that filtration of the blood is going to happen right here at these little yellow spheres. If we section through those little yellow spheres, what we see is this. And so the last piece of this model is this right here. This is representing one of those little yellow spheres. That is what this part is right here. All right, so this shell around the blood vessels is called the glomerular capsule or Bowman's capsule. Either one is okay. All right, if we look inside that shell, we can see the blood vessels. So this is where filtration is actually taking place. This specialized capillary bed is called the glomerulus. All right, so from here, filtrate, right, so what we're filtering to make the urine is going to flow through the nephron. So this first part of the nephron is called the proximal convoluted tubule. And so let's go back to this zoomed out image right here. Here is Bowman's capsule. This first squiggly part right here is the proximal convoluted tubule. From there, urine or filtrate at this point is going to flow down, right? So this right here, number 18, is the descending limb. It's going to flip around and filtrate is going to start ascending again. So number 20 is the ascending limb. So this entire looped structure is called the loop of Henle. It includes the descending limb and the ascending limb. All right, once it gets back into the cortex, it's going to start waving around again. So this here, between my two fingers here, is the distal convoluted tubule. Finally, when the filtrate exits the distal convoluted tubule, it is going to be dumped into this structure right here. This is the collecting duct. Multiple collecting ducts, as we can see, are going to drain into what is called the minor calyx. And so let's zoom out once again. All right. So the nephrons have just made urine. Okay, that urine is dumped into the collecting duct. The collecting ducts are going to drain into this funnel shape right here, number 11. This is called a minor calyx. Note how multiple minor calyces come together to form number 12, a major calyx. So 11 is a minor calyx, 12 is a major calyx. Now multiple major calyces are going to come together. Right, so filtrate or urine from the entire kidney is going to funnel down into this kind of open space in the kidney right here. Number 13 is the renal pelvis. All right, that's the last time the urine is going to be in the kidney. From here, it is going to drain out via the ureter or ureter. Okay, once again, the urine is then going to drain down the ureters to be stored in the urinary bladder. Now, control of the flow of urine occurs via control from the nervous system. We're not going to get into that now, but what I want to point out on this female model and on this male model is that there are circular muscles that control the flow of urine. On this model, we can see one of these sphincter muscles. One would be up here. We can't see that. We're not going to worry about that. The second one, this is called the external urethral sphincter. And essentially that is a circular muscle embedded within the pelvic floor. So this little red muscular tissue down here, this is the external urethral sphincter. And so this can squeeze shut to essentially prevent the flow of urine from the urinary bladder up here all the way down through the urethra. Okay, so this tube is the urethra. All right, same kind of thing is happening in the female. Again, we can't see the internal urethral sphincter, so we're not going to worry about that. This is the urinary bladder. This here, this tube is the urethra. This red line right here is the pelvic floor, and embedded within the pelvic floor is this circular muscle around the urethra called the external urethral sphincter.